Yo, 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 you are now watching Your Big Brothers. Let's go. Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of Your Big Brothers podcast. And on today's episode, we're doing something a little different. See, we decided to do a reaction video. Ruslan proposed the question.
The church failed men. Has the Western church inadvertently created the Sneakos and the Andrew Tates, guys that are now banned from social media, that drop a lot of red pill truths, but are in many ways void of. What do you think? Macro idea. As you, who are a recent convert to Christianity, you grew up within the context of the church, but you're relatively a recent convert. Do you feel like seeing Christianity in public, do you feel like it was something that was aspirational and or relevant to young men that want to succeed?
No,
Why?
because that is not how the modern church is marketed to society, to young men today.
Okay.
When you think of the modern day church, the one that is in front of you, the one that it's it feels like it's motivational speaking for a certain demographic of people. Like it's not. See, the true gospel is masculine.
Okay.
You feel me? The true gospel is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And when young men hear the true gospel and hear the weight of the gospel, it has a sobriety to it and a weight to it that I think would appeal to a lot of men. And also a lot of the concepts preached in the red pill are preached in the Bible.
Regards to what's been happening with the explosion of Andrew Tate, which I had to catch up our brother Alan Parr about Andrew Tate. Fresh and Fit, Mr. Kevin Samuels, so many of the manosphere, red pill type of voices that kind of preach similar congruent values to Christianity or traditional values, quote unquote. However, also have some views that I say are in contradiction with Christianity. And my question to these brothers is, has the church, the capital C global church, at least in the West, has the church not done a great job of engaging men?
He mentioned, like, Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, who else? Kevin Samuels, and saying that a lot of guys are getting drawn to the manosphere. And he was wondering if that had anything to do with something that the church was lacking or the church not doing. So we decided that, you know what, we're going to help him out. We're going to help him out, and we're going to help answer this question. We're going to answer, why have the men been leaving the church? Is there something about the church that the men are just done with? So, without further ado, let's watch the video.
Have you ever thought about the difference between Father's Day and Mother's Day in most churches? I mean, I know Father's Day is about fathers and Mother's Day is about mothers, but the difference in tone and the difference in approach in most, not all, but most churches is pretty pronounced. We're going to talk about that today. My name is Lane. This is Preaching Donkey. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, share in the comments. Does my experience match yours, or am I kind of out there in left field? Let me know. I want to show you how in most churches, most pastors approach Father's Day and Mother's Day so drastically different. Happy Mother's Day. Hi, moms. It is such a great honor to have you here at church today. We love our moms so much. In fact, we know that you have the hardest job in the world, which is why we want this day to be the best for you. Now, I know some of you might be hurting or struggling, but we love you too. Moms, you're the best. I know this because I have a mom, and my wife, well, she is a mom. Hey, moms, wait 1 second. We've got flowers for you, moms. Here you go, moms. This Mother's Day, be encouraged, because after all, you're the best and we love you. Go, moms. All right, listen here, dads. It's Father's Day, which means you aren't measuring up. You know, you stink. Have you been told that in a while? Has anyone told you in a long time that you are not measuring up? In fact, here's the standard and here's you right down here. Hey, welcome back to church, guys. Welcome back. It's been a few weeks. For some of you, it's been a few months. Hey, happy Father's Day. Maybe you'll do better next year. Are you leading your families? Are you providing? Are you protecting? Are you laying down your life for your wife like you should? I bet you're not. I bet you stink. Happy Father's Day. We'll see you next week.
Dude, I think that clip is absolutely wild. And it's funny, it is just a little skit there. It's not anything like super serious, but it actually is serious. I know for me, growing up, going to church, I would see that every single year on Mother's Day.
Every Mother's Day, you hear a sermon that says, thank God for moms. And I would say yes and amen. Every Father's Day, you hear a sermon that says, do better dads.
It was never, ever, ever looking at how can you be a better mother. It's just praising them for existing. And I think that's part of the reason why the church fails men and it pushes them out, because they are just so hard on them.
You're right, because my history is in ministry.
The best evangelists are new Christians because they're hungry, they're on fire for God, right? Most of their friends are unsaved. So we want to share that.
Have a degree from Liberty University in religion. I was a youth pastor. I filled in on Sundays when the pastor was traveling. I was preaching on Sundays. So I have a really well-established, resume and history working in ministry. What's so funny about that skit is it's literally the reality. It's so true. And yes, they even, I've heard them even acknowledge mothers on Father's Day.
Oh, yeah.
Praising mothers for being both mom and dad.
The church gives men nothing. They give you one tool, servant leadership.
Right.
And the answer is always, if something's going wrong, double down on servant leader. That's
Right.
like, spend more time with your kids, or, buy your wife more flowers or something like that. That's essentially the one tool they equip you with. Not like in the past where Joshua could say, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. Men today basically can't boss their wives around. They don't really have authority in the home because, again, we live in an egalitarian society. Expectations for the church puts on husbands and fathers are enormous. They have few tools, in society to use, and the church doesn't equip them with any tools. And so I believe that is one of the biggest roots of why men have turned to the red pill guys on the internet. So the MGTOW people are part of that. The pickup artists are part of that. The men's rights people are part of that. There's a Christian subculture of that. They equip men with essentially a model of the world of relationships between men and women, evolutionary psychology based explanation of how men and women work. And then they have essentially a library of techniques that you can use in the appropriate situations to essentially manipulate or influence the outcome, whether that's true or not, or whether they're accurate or not, or whether they're being used for good or negative purposes or not. They're actually saying, here is a set of tools, men. The church gives men nothing. They give you one tool, servant leadership.
Right.
And the answer is always, if something's going wrong, double down on servant leader. And a model of the world that basically says, you're to blame for everything. That's essentially their model of the world, is you're probably the problem. As one Christian book about marriage put it, men, you're the problem. Women are not the problem. Your wife is not the problem.
One tool, which is servant leader, while the red pill gives men a plethora of tools.
Yep.
And obviously it sounds really attractive for men, Do you know what servant leader is? Do you know what servant leadership is?
I don't know the exact definition as the church defines it.
Okay, so basically it's best defined to be like representing Jesus himself, okay? And it says I believe it's in Matthew, I think 20 through 26 or 26 through 28. It says something along the lines of like, whoever wants to become great among you, you first must be a servant. And whoever wants to be first must be a slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. You know, and so when the church tells men like, this is what you got to do, you got to be like Christ.
I've seen a guy walk in with counseling. He was a big smile on his face, sharing with him about the role of the husband in the relationship. And to be honest, in this relationship, the wife was not interested in her role or following Jesus for that matter. And so I said, but you believe in Christ and you want to follow Christ. I said, okay, well then your job is to love her, even if she's mistreating you and being unloving to you and being horrible to you. Your job is to love her anyways. And he left there with a very sad face.
And that makes sense. Like why men would be, so many men, Christian men at that, would be really drawn to the red pill, because the red pill offers them like a lot of different tools. And like what's interesting is that you don't have to take all the tools. You could take the tools that work for you and work for your worldview.
The place that requires courage is to preach against the sins that the people in your congregation are likely to be committing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Because people can listen to you talk about other people's sins all day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That the women of the church, in the evangelical church, the women of the church currently are the sacred cow. Currently, the group that you're not allowed to criticize or act as though they have struggles and temptations that are unique to their station, that group is women.
Isn't it true that the prosperity gospel has a problem in that it treats Proverbs as though they were vending machine guarantees?
Right.
Like you do this and you get your product.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's something I just think when it comes to like the servant leader concept and complementarianism, it does seem to have an analogy to that, in that if something is wrong in your home, then it's always that you've been leading poorly. And it's like, if you lead well, things will go right. Whereas I would say that if something is going wrong in your home and you're the man, then you need to make it your responsibility to like do something,
To address it.
whether or not it's to blame or not. But I don't think it's like, okay, how am I leading wrong? How am I not? So it's like, I'm not being enough of a servant leader. So I think we always are looking at, we're not being enough of a servant leader. And that is somehow the reason why our wife has this mysterious malaise. And like we're going through a rough patch in our marriage that seems to look at it as the husband's leadership is the determinant factor in how everyone else behaves.
So
Which I don't believe is the case.
you're distinguishing, if I take you rightly, between responsibility and blame.
You see, like that part of the video, what they were explaining was exactly what I was talking about with the servant leader. I mean, the way that they approach it, it's like, if you build it, they will come. You know, like Field of Dreams, Proverbs shit. It's like, if you do this good, then you will get this good. But if you do this bad, you will get bad. And although it's like a really general way to think about things, like, yeah, if you do good deeds, you know, to others might do good deeds back to you, or they'll be more encouraged to do good deeds back to you. I mean, that's a good general way to think about things. But in all reality, is like, you could do as good as you want. You could be as good as you can to people. That doesn't mean they're going to be good back to you. Doesn't mean you have to. You should continue to put yourself in that situation where you're constantly getting, you know, shitted on. But in their mind, they won't blame the women. It's automatically the guy's fault. For some reason, you're the problem.
Working away from them, I suppose.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. It's a mixture of things behind that.
Yeah.
It's not just, first off, they don't know that they're doing it always.
Okay.
They don't really get it. The pastors don't hate men. At least they don't think they do. They've been conditioned into, one, believing that women are somehow less sinful, right? But that even works its way out practically. Like, they might not write that down on paper, but like a great example is women cheat, just like men cheat.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of church planners whose wives were unfaithful to them, and pastors, quite a few actually. And I can think of one in particular who was a good man, and they've had a ton of kids. And they've been married for many, many years, at least over 20, okay? And that she just kind of lost her mind, and she went and was unfaithful to her husband. And like so many men, he wanted to work it out. Men don't like to restart, right? They're very practical. Women women tend to have like a sort of divorce fantasy. Like, I'll divorce this guy and then I'll find the true soulmate, the better guy.
Eat, pray, love.
Yeah, that's right. Men are much more practical than that.
Yeah.
Also, the culture is conditioning that into women as well.
Yeah.
But even with that guy, people were like, well, it was something you did. It was something you weren't the perfect husband. And you're like, who is? Right? Like, who's the perfect wife? Right? But it's always on the husband. So I make a distinction between responsibility and blame. It is the husband's responsibility if his wife cheats on him. Right? That doesn't mean he caused it.
Right.
He has to make a decision and deal with it. He's the head of his household. That might mean he is within his rights through scripture to divorce her.
You know, really at the end of the day, like, look, the church is here to, you know, share the gospel, make disciples, you know, and when men feel like they are alienated from church, or church doesn't have a place for them anymore, because whether it's the feminization of church, or maybe it's because the church is just solely focused on pleasing women, as we've already seen that and heard in this video, that even pastors say that the number one group of people that you cannot talk about right now are women. You cannot correct women. So when that's the case, you know, you are driving men out of the church. And of course, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go elsewhere, somewhere where they are comfortable and accepted into. And that just happens to be the red pill space. But that doesn't make it a bad thing, because there's Christian men and Christian groups in the red pill space who live by their convictions of their biblical views. And they just happen to operate and adopt certain red pill skills and tools that works with them within their Christian worldview, you know?
Yeah,
like,
think of it this way. Think of it as, because, you know, I know personally, I don't cheat on my woman, okay? So I put on the Christian belt, and then the tools that I put in that tool belt are red pill tools. This is exactly what it is.
yeah, like you are literally just finding other tools that work, and you're using them from a Christian mindset. Like, this is how I'm going to use this tool. What's wrong with that? And when will the church start holding both parties accountable again? When are the churches going to start holding women accountable for their wrongdoings or for their mistakes? And I think the day that they start being accountable, the simple fix is the church needs to be accountable. And then the church needs to hold its congregation accountable, both men and women. And at that point, when they do that, then they will start being on the right course and healing the community.